And welcome back. Based on Ellen White's many counsels on not using caffeine, why do you advise in your Aging Brain book to use it? Quote from Counsels on Diets and Foods, page 430. Here's the quote. All should bear a clear testimony against tea and coffee, never using them. They are narcotics, injurious alike to the brain and to the other organs of the body, unquote. So here's a quote. Now, before I answer this question, are we reasoning and thinking, or are we approaching this as an external authority has spoken? Who are we to question?
Exactly.
Okay, we have a quote from Ellen White. Ellen White has said it. That settles it. That's all there is to it. No questions asked.
Right.
Or, I'm going to answer this question, folks. Some people listening might be very uncomfortable. Before I answer it, I have to set it in another setting so maybe you'll be more comfortable. And what they get uncomfortable about is the fact that they've offloaded their own responsibility for understanding to an authority, and they just take the rules that authority says, and if you question any of the rules, then if this one's not right, then all the other ones I'm doing might not be right either. How am I supposed to know? Okay? So if you were a Christian in the apostolic church, that first century, 50 AD, 20 years since Christ rose, and Peter, the apostle Peter, comes along and is modeling not associating with the uncircumcised fellows, would you say, who are we to question him? He's the apostle. He's inspired. He's been special privilege of being trained by Jesus himself. The Holy Spirit has come upon him. He's writing inspired books of the Bible, and only holy men of God moved by the Spirit can write the Bible, and he's written 2 books of the Bible. Who are we to question the apostle Peter when he doesn't want to associate with these uncircumcised fellows? Would you question? Or would you just go along because he's the apostle? Well, Paul fortunately questioned him and confronted him publicly and told him he was wrong. Yes or no? Everybody with me here? Now, he was wrong on this issue. Does that mean he's no longer an apostle? He's no longer inspired? We shouldn't trust the books he wrote?
No.
Okay? Get your mind around this idea of inspiration. Many people think that if you have somebody who you believe has inspiration, special inspiration from the Lord, that they somehow are flawless beings now. They're not. They're human beings that still make mistakes, and even when you read their writings, you're still required to think it through for yourself. So in this quote, she's made a mistake. She's actually wrong. What does she say? That tea and coffee are narcotics. Okay, well, as a physician, I immediately go, okay, that's not right. Let me look up what narcotics are, just to be sure. Maybe I'm overlooking. Maybe the definition I've only has a partial definition. Maybe it's not the full definition. And so this definition of narcotics, in our current dictionary, it's any of a class of substances that blunt the senses, as opium, morphine, belladonna, marijuana, alcohol, that in large quantities produce euphoria, stupor, or coma, that when used constantly can cause habituation and addiction, and they're used in medicine to relieve pain, cause sedation, and induce sleep. I said, well, okay, words change meaning. Maybe that's not what it meant when she used it in the 19th century. So I got a Webster's Dictionary of 1828. And this is the definition of a narcotic in 1828, which would have been available for her to use in her day. A medicine which stupefies the senses and renders insensible to pain, hence a medicine which induces sleep, a soporific, an opiate. That was a narcotic in her day.
Was coffee and tea made differently back then, because it was a long time ago?
So I did not look up whether coffee and tea were being laced with opiates in her day, because if coffee and tea sold on the market were also laced with fentanyl, opium, then laudanum, then certainly that would be a narcotic then, okay? So if that's what was happening, then that's right. I don't know. I don't know that, okay? That's a hypothetical just put out to try to find, and the reason that was thrown out is we want to believe she wasn't wrong. So let's find a reason why it's right. Well, maybe they were putting opiates in the coffee and tea back then, because we don't want this to be wrong.
Well, from 1922, cocaine was considered a narcotic.
That's right.
Onwards. Before it wasn't. So I think it's just a question of nuance. Like it's like arbitrary, really. Because
So,
like from here.
so
on
again,
Yeah.
some people will use the term narcotic to mean anything that is potentially addictive. But that is not the terminology from the dictionary of her day. Not the And some people today will include cocaine, amphetamines, under the classification of narcotics in the legal justice system, not in the medical system. It's only included, when they call it narcotic today, it's over regulation elements, not physiological application. So yes, legal justice systems will classify it under the classification of narcotics, these addicting stimulants. But medical providers never consider stimulants narcotics. Because I just read to you what narcotics do.
Right.
Stimulants don't do that.
Right.
Okay, so we make a distinction functionally. We call them narcotics and stimulants. Okay, and so in her day, she's making a medical, not a legal application. So even if we allow for the legal definition, sometimes doing it because of addiction purposes, she is making a medical application here. So first question is, she's wrong in calling them narcotics by the definitions of her own day. They don't stupefy, they don't numb, they don't put to sleep. They actually make more alert.
Definitely.
And then the data shows that, and so if you read my book, so that's the first thing. Secondly, in my book, I describe the coffee and the tea being used should be approached as a medicinal. I say that in my book. Meaning that if you have certain medical conditions, you shouldn't do it. If it causes you any medical-related problems, you shouldn't do it. You have seizure disorders, certain vascular disorders, and if it interferes with normal sleep, you shouldn't use it, because sleep is more important. But if you can drink a couple cups of this a day and not have any medical consequences or negative sleep problems, then you actually have health-promoting benefits from these substances, and you reduce your risk of Alzheimer's disease. Pardon?
You could be crucified.
Okay, this is in my book, and it's science. And I will tell you what, Ellen White would agree with me. She says you shouldn't use opiates and these other things. So anybody who, assault with force, opiates, narcotics, things that stupefy and put you to sleep. So anybody going for a hip surgery, tell them you don't want anything to put you to sleep. Okay? Because Ellen White says you can't take anything that slows your brain down and puts you to sleep. That's a rule. No, she would have never said that. She's talking about daily use to compromise your daily operations, not in circumstances that it actually reduces the damage to you. I will tell you, in her day, if it was during the Civil War, I don't know if you know this, but there were occasions when somebody was traumatized by the war, and the surgeons had to do amputations in the field, and the only thing they had to deal with them was alcohol, and they would get them drunk till they passed out so they could cut off the limb. If that happened, should they go, well, I read the writings of Sister White, and she says, don't drink alcohol, just cut my limb off anyway. No, this is being used as a medicinal. And so many people read these as rules, and they never actually reason through the principle behind the rules. And it's a daily use of something that undermines cognitive performance and stupefies the mind and undermines your autonomy, and that's what she's against. It's damaging to us, and we don't want that. It ruins our health. Okay, next question.